Hey, what's going on, guys? What's going on, YouTubers? I'm going to talk to you today about how Trump's South Africa tariffs are long overdue, and I wholeheartedly support this. Now, before I go any further, God bless the citrus farmers and the auto workers. There's lots of them that are already being laid off due to these tariffs, and I feel sorry for them, and I feel sorry for these families. But let me explain what the government of South Africa has done to deserve these tariffs, okay? For the longest time, the United States has had zero tariffs on South Africa's goods, okay? And South Africa puts drastic tariffs on U.S. goods. Then South Africa gets China to come in for Huawei Internet, and South Africa does joint military exercises with the Chinese and Russian naval forces, and both those naval forces are committed to undermining the U.S.'s national security. And then they're expecting free trade from the United States, okay? China already has 40 to 50% tariffs on South Africa's goods, and Russia has virtually no tariffs. I mean, it has virtually no trade with South Africa. Very, very little, okay? So South Africa undermines the United States every chance it gets. Not the people, but the government. But it's a democratically elected government, and there's a lot of South Africans that don't agree with the ANC, but they're scared to not vote for the ANC. And if the ANC doesn't deliver on promises and stuff, they just don't vote. The ANC is a very intimidating political party, okay? So these tariffs were long overdue. South Africa puts drastic tariffs on U.S. goods, but expects the U.S. to have no tariffs on South African goods going to the United States. The United States is South Africa's main foreign aid donor and trading partner, and South Africa does not hardly vote with the United States and the United Nations. They trash the United States every chance they get. A lot of times the current South African government does. They have a sense of entitlement to do this because they think that the U.S. had a relationship with the apartheid government, and that the United States in the 1980s was one of the last countries to impose sanctions on apartheid South Africa. But the thing is not as complex, is a lot more complex than people want to think it is, okay? Apartheid was evil and had to go. But the African National Congress abused a lot of their citizens and supporters in Camp Quatro. Mandela wanted investigations into that abuse, but people like Jacob Zuma talked Nelson Mandela out of it. That's number one. Number two, the African National Congress terrorized the Inkatha Freedom Party a lot during the 1980s and beat IFP supporters every chance they got, particularly after Nelson Mandela was in prison, okay? That went on as well. And so the African National Congress was not a democratic organization by far. They had a lot of political killings that went on, even fighting against apartheid. There were a lot of ANC leaders living in exile outside of South Africa during apartheid that were living lavish lifestyles. So the United States government was more anti-apartheid, but they were also anti-ANC. They didn't have this cozy relationship with the apartheid government that a lot of people think they do. What little relationship they had had nothing to do with race. It had to do with fighting communism. The United States, like I said, they didn't support apartheid, and I think them in the UK should have condemned apartheid a lot sooner than they did, NATO nations as well. But nations like Sweden and stuff, which were Caucasian nations, by the way, led the way in putting sanctions on the apartheid government. And the United States eventually followed suit. So to say that the United States owes South Africa all this free trade is just not true. Okay, the United States does not have any obligation to South Africa whatsoever, and the United States has a right to stand up for itself, okay? The African National Congress was not a democratic organization. They had a lot of internal conflict. They had a lot of abuse in Camp Quatro. They were using children as human shields. So, yeah, the United States reluctantly did not support that organization, and they denounced it as a terrorist organization because they were. Plain and simple. So I hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.